Welcome back, everybody. Gaming Grandpa here. I hate to say this, but I am redoing my FM challenge. I've had multiple issues with recordings, multiple issues with sound disappearing, and all kinds of other problems. Now, I can tell you, let me move my mic over here, it might be a little better. For whatever reason, I am in a room that the echo really is horrible. I can hear trains coming by. I don't have the software nor the space to put any software or the money to get decent editing software for sound. So until I can afford to do that, this is the best I can do. Now, I want to talk real quick. I am going to be using FC Austin in the MLS. I want to cover the MLS squad registration rules. Part of playing this FIFA as a football manager challenge is that I have to follow the FM challenge rules as much as I can, which is squad registration. Now in FIFA there is no such thing. You can have 52 players on your team, you can play however many you want, you can do what you want to do. However, football manager in the MLS I can only have 30 players. So that's what I am stuck with. Now if I went to Germany I could have 99 players. Obviously I can't do that in FIFA, so 52 would be the max, but I don't have any rules like I do in the MLS. The MLS is one of the harder saves to play compared to other countries. Now, I can have up more than 30, but I can only play 30. I can't play anybody I don't register, and that's just the rule. So you'll see how that goes the more I get into it. I'm allowed 8 international player slots. Now, what that means is any player that is non-domestic, that is not from the USA, or is not, well, he doesn't even have to be from USA. You can have a kid from, German parents that has a German dad and an American mom, and he's an American. So, but he might have German nationality. Okay, so that isn't considered a domestic territory. Like Puerto Rico is a domestic territory, but if you get some kid from like Panama, then he will take up a international player slot. Does that make sense? Once a player is eligible to get a green card and they get one, then they don't take up that international player slot anymore. But 8 is the max you're allowed to have, and you can buy and trade them with other teams. So we'll get into that more later. You're allowed to have 3 designated players, with 1 being under 23. So in other words, a designated player is a player that wouldn't come to the MLS unless they could get more money than what you're allowed to pay your normal players. All right, $612,500 is what the salary cap allows you to spend on a designated player. So if a player makes $600,000, they're not going to take up a DP slot. All right. So with that in mind, I am going to end up signing a player that's a free agent this year that I signed when I started the first save, and I'm going to sign him again. That will be a DP, and he's going to be the only one because everybody else is going to make less than $612,500 a year. So he's actually going to make $400,000 more, and I have to take that out of my coffers, out of the team. All right, so as long as I have the money to pay them and I have the slots available, then I can use it and sign a star player. Now, the reason they have the under 23 player is because, and only one, is because they don't want you to go find 3 wonder kids and pay them $5 million each, in stock. They don't want that. They want better players in MLS, but they want you to follow their rules. So that's why you're only allowed 1. Now, a couple years ago, the MLS come up with another way to help get younger players that don't cost as much as a wonder kid would, and that's called the Under 22 Initiative Program. All right, they have to be under 22 and not be in the MLS in order to be on this contract, and it allows you to pay them more money than a normal player, but less than a DP. I hope you're not confused because it gets even more confusing. Now, in order to sign an under 22 initiative player, we're going to call him an IP from now on because it's so much easier than pronouncing this damn thing. Anyway, in order to sign an IP player, you can only have used 2 DP slots. So if you have 3 DPs currently at your club, then you can't use this program on a youngster. Okay? Now, if you have 2 DPs and you can have 2 under 22 players signed, then you can go ahead and get your 3rd DP, and then you have 5 in total altogether, and you're good to go. Now, if one DP leaves, then you can go ahead and sign another if you want to, as long as you're not under the 20 or over the 2 players. Confused? I am. I had to look this crap up for real, man. It's like, holy shit. Now, an advantage about the IP player program is that they don't take up a foreign slot. which are international player slot, which is amazing. Now, I also want to tell you, I will use the word soccer and football synonymously. It means the same damn thing. Being overseas, you call it football. Coming back to America, we call it soccer. I grew up playing soccer as a kid. I'm in the Army overseas watching football. So, it is what it is. Same thing with a foreign player and an international player. I use them synonymously too. So don't get confused. It's just the same thing. I just use potato in a different way. Okay? Now, if a player is 21 and you sign them, they don't expire when I thought they did at 22. They expire when their first contract that you signed them on this program expires. So if you sign a 21 player for 5 years on this program, he's good until he turns 26. All right. In order to get a permanent resident of the USA, you have to have lived in the USA for 5 years. There's other ways you can marry American or different things like that, okay? But my players ain't going to go out and marry an American girl just to play in the MLS. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to allow it. I don't think so. Your mind should be on playing soccer, not marriage. That's what my Army sergeants used to tell me. All right, but anyhow, there's all kinds of different things that I can use to kind of trick the system, and that's perfectly legal as long as I stay within my limits, and I'll get into more on that later. Now, the Youth Academy, all right? The whole goal to this is to get homegrown players. What a homegrown player is, it's a 15-year-old kid. He can't be 16 when you sign him to the Youth Academy. He has to be 15, and then when he signs his first Major League Soccer contract, in other words, I graduating from the academy and he comes into my senior team, then he becomes homegrown. Now, if I trade him or release him and then sign him as a free agent, he will never be homegrown, because he had a break in between. Does that make sense? Okay? So if I sign a stud 16 or 17-year-old, he will never be homegrown. And if he's a foreigner, that sucks because he's going to take up an international player slot unless he could get a green card. And that is very meticulous that you have to pay attention to. All right? Keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to be using the save load trick. You all know what that is. At the end of the month, I save before my scout reports come out. If I don't like it, I reload. I'm not doing that to get a stockpile of stud Youth Academy kids. I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because in real life and in Football Manager, then we were playing the FM Challenge, when I send a scout, that's a one-star scout, although it's not that in FIFA, Football Manager. They're based off of stars and potential and stuff. If I send any scout and I tell him I want a 90 potentially rated player, I want a striker, go to Argentina and find me one, he will find me a list of a few of them. I don't care if he's the shittiest scout in the world. All right? In FIFA, they don't do that. It doesn't matter if I tell them to go find a certain player. They won't do that. And that's why I'm using that trick, because I want this to be as realistic as possible, like I was playing FM. And in FM, I can do that. Now, that doesn't mean that every now and then you're going to get a shit player, because it happens. The scouts, especially 1-1, 2-2 star scouts, they're going to come back with what they think is better, and that's why I'm doing the trick. Okay? Now, all loans are going to count as a domestic loan to help with that eligibility. All right? All foreign players that I sign in the Youth Academy that are 16 or older will never be homegrown, but I can still get their 5 years of eligibility where they don't take up a foreign player slot. All right? And we'll get into green cards here in just a minute. Now, in Football Manager and in real life, I can tell my loan managers and everybody else that, hey, I want to loan this kid out for 2 years, but I want to loan him in our country so his eligibility stats stay the same. All right? In FIFA, you can't do that. So every loan is therefore going to be considered domestic. It's the only fair way that I can do it, since I can't pick what teams I want them to play in. And that's another thing that I wanted to talk about real quick. My little rant for the day is damn option to buy loans. I love them. I think it was a good addition by EA. The problem is if I am the team loaning a player out, and teams come in and say, hey, I want to buy this player, and if you say, no, I just want to loan him, then most of the time they're not going to want to loan him, and it's really harder to loan players out now. I can't stand that. Another problem is if you're willing to go ahead and let them buy the player, then they want to offer market value. If the youngster, the 16-year-old is worth $350,000, but you know damn well he's going to be worth $5 or $6 million 2 years from now, they should offer $5 or $6 million, but they don't. And if you try to increase the value, they get pissed off and they don't want to loan a player. So EA, please fix that. Okay, rant over. Now, Youth Academy players cannot play when you bring them up unless they are registered. You're only allowed to register players during the transfer windows, and once the transfer window's over, you have to produce the registration form to the league and this is my team. Now, during the end of season 1 and season 2, I take that into account, or I will. That way, if I know I have a couple 17-year-olds that are going to end up probably wanting to get out of the youth academy, I don't want to lose them, so I'm going to hold slots and register them ahead of time. So I will let you know when I do that, and I have a database for you all prepared, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, let's get into the salary cap and wages. I don't care what FIFA says, how much money I have. If I break my salary cap, I'm going to get penalized big time. My salary cap this year and next year is $4.9 million. Okay? So you take up the annual salary of every player, and if it's over $4.9 million, then I'm in trouble. But there are some things I can do, and I'll get into that in just a second. All right? Now, the DP players count towards a salary cap of only $612,500. That's why it's important to have DPs, these star players that make more than that. But the rest of it doesn't count towards my salary cap. It just comes out of my team's budget. So that's the good thing about DPs. All right. Now, I also have what they call allocation money. There's targeted and general, and you can see the amounts on here. All right. Allocation money can be used to buy down salaries, buy extra international slots, or it can be traded with teams for different things. Like I could give a team $500,000 allocation money, my targeted allocation money for an international player slot, and I can do things like that. Now, I can't really in FIFA do that, but I'm going to have some randomized stuff in here happen just because that's how I have to do it in order to be fair, towards FM also. All right. Now, so say I have a $6 million salary cap before my squad registration's due, or $6 million salary spent. I could use my allocation money to buy down that to $4.9 million and be eligible to register all my players, but then that allocation money goes away. It also is only good for this year. So at the end of this year, the allocation money goes away. Now the targeted allocation money is decreasing over time. So next year it's only going to be $2.7 million and so forth because they're trying to get away from that. But by doing that, the general allocation money is going to be increased. So it's just MLS political crap, but trust me, I'm going to keep up on it and let you know what I'm doing. All right. Now the games. When I play my games, I'm going to be playing as the goalkeeper. That's a whole other rant why I do that. I'm not going to get into it, but you basically get to watch the whole game like you would normally, except I'm only controlling the goalkeeper. I like it. I think it's a better perspective. My players, their AI traits come in and they get to do what they want to do. That, like if I had a speed dribbler that is only available if the AI controls him, then you're going to see that happen. And it's a lot more fun in my opinion. All right. Now, I'm going to sim every game except preseason and cup games and tournaments are exempt. Okay. I can play and show you every one of them and we're good to go. Now, I'm allowed 5 games throughout the league season, but I call them random, but 3 games are not random. The first and last game of the season, it doesn't matter if it's home or away, is going to be one of them. And then the first game after the January transfer window is going to be my third. So that means I'm allowed to have 2 more games throughout the season that are just league games that I will show you, and I intend to use all of them. All right? Now, green cards. I didn't put it on here, but we're going to talk about that. Green cards, permanent residency, and citizenship is an important part of Football Manager and soccer worldwide. All right, a lot of countries do have a max number of players from other countries that you can have. All right, and so getting them citizenship and getting them green cards and permanent residency is very important. As a matter of fact, every team in the MLS has a lot of lawyers that do just nothing but work on getting green cards, so that way these kids can not take up an international player slot. But the rule is, all right, if you have a kid that you're signing or a player that you're signing, hell, they're all kids to me because I'm a grandpa and I'm older, but anybody that you sign that comes to play here, if they've played for their national team at one point or another, they're going to get a green card. Okay? That means it takes away the international player slot that they would normally take up. Okay? Now, you know how when you're playing, you'll get a note that says, hey, these players are getting called up for international duty? That right there seals them a green card. So if that happens, I can lose my international player slot that player's taken up because he's going to get a green card. Now, for those players that can't get green cards, and there's going to be some good players out there, primarily my youth squads that are from the big countries, Spain, England, Germany, whatnot, they're probably not going to be able to get to their national team or their youth national teams. That's where the homegrown status and the eligibility comes into play. Okay? To be homegrown, you have to have signed for my academy at age 15. You can't be 16 or 17. It doesn't count. They become homegrown when they sign their first contract to come play for my senior team. Okay? So if I have a stud 16-year-old, I'm still going to sign him, but he's going to take up an international player slot when I promote him, and unless I don't have any available, then I'm going to have to send him out for loan. So it gets really tricky, but I will touch base on that when that time comes. But just keep that in mind. The goal is to sign 15-year-olds, even though it won't happen all the time, but that's the goal. And that's why, because when they're homegrown, they take up an MLS slot of the 30-man roster, but not my foreign player slot, and it doesn't matter what country they're from. If they're homegrown, they're considered to be a permanent resident, and it's awesome. So that's pretty much the rules. I'm going to play this game until FIFA says I can't play it anymore as a manager. In 20 years is what it's always been. I presume it's that way now. Or until I get bored. If I'm winning the MLS for 5 years in a row, okay, I'm done. There's nothing more I can do. I have no international leagues in FIFA, and it sucks because I would love to go to CONCACAF and win. It's just like Europa League and the UEFA Championship, but unfortunately that doesn't happen. Okay, now, current squad, and I say current. Oh my gosh! And another thing, I'm using my main account, not Gaming Grandpa, because I am not going to mess up my 100% completed status. All right, now, oh crap, I went too far. Okay, I don't want to trade players just to trade them, but if like this guy, I'm going to sign a better goalkeeper. I already know I will because he's a free agent. And so he's not going to be my starter. So I'm probably going to get rid of him and transfer listing. All right. I have 3 goalkeepers, and I don't have a problem with that, but I only prefer to play with 2. I have a backup, and then I have a goalkeeper. Now, how I do my squads, and this is an important thing, is that I can only have 30 players, but how I do my squad is I have my 11 starters, and then I have my 8 subs are primarily the backups for those players. All right. And then the rest of them are going to be young players that I'm grooming to take over either a backup slot or the starting position. All right. Now, I don't need this goalkeeper, and this goalkeeper I definitely don't need. This kid I think I'm going to keep a year. All right. Now, a lot of these players that I want to keep, if somebody comes in with an extremely high offer, I'm going to take it. Okay. And here's the other thing. I'm not forcing myself to do this, but part of the FM challenge is that, say Manchester United comes in for one of my star players, all right? I'm going to have to sell him. I know I don't want to, and in FIFA you don't really have to, and it won't piss the player off. But in real life, if your kid has a chance to go play for Man United, are you seriously telling me that he ain't going to throw a hissy fit when you tell him he can't go? Especially when they're going to pay 3 times as much as you would get for this player anywhere else. So that's things to think about, okay? Now, depending on their stats, like if they're a team player or if they're a solid player, if they have leadership stats and things like that, traits I mean, chances are that I can talk him out of not wanting to go, but so we have to play that as a role in this challenge, okay? Now, Cascante and Gabrielson are my current center backs. Lima and Jimenez will rotate between my right back and left back. Ring is going to be my central defensive midfielder, and I like this guy. This poor guy has played on a lot of teams, but he has that leadership trait. What that means is all the other players on the field with him are going to do better, and they're going to improve faster because of his leadership, and I really, really like that. All right, but I don't want to get rid of him. I'm not going to transfer list him, but if I do get an offer for him, then I'm going to have to let him go. That's just how it is. Now, this guy's taken up an international player slot, and I want to get rid of him because look how much he's worth. I can find a free agent youngster that's better than that. So it's like, good Lord. All right, now he's my left mid. He's my central attacking midfielder, my starter. He's my right mid. All right, and then I play the 2-striker system, and currently it's going to be these 2. All right, Dejiti is the only one that I'm planning on keeping. The rest of these, I need to get rid of because they take up foreign player slots. And not only that, they're not worth shit. I mean, look at that. I mean, now this kid, yeah, I'm keeping him, at least a year or 2 until I can get a really good value for him. So, and one thing I want to touch base, the reason he is out on loan is because currently, even though there's 17 players on his team, I already figured it up, there's only 8 international players that take up a slot, and that's exactly my max. He would take up a slot. So he's out on loan And the cool thing is, though, it's domestic, so he gets a year of eligibility even though he's playing at River Plate. But that's why he was sent out on loan. They signed him and loaned him back there, and that worked out great. All right, but anyhow, that is the 2022 Austin FC Football Club. Now, I'm curious to see my players. Oh, great. I don't have a stud like I did. Wow. I had a 72 rated player last time. Now, here's the thing. None of these kids are going to be homegrown. However, because they came with the team, I think I'm going to go ahead and waiver that and say that all of these guys can be homegrown. All right, it's only fair because they came with the club. All right, he is my bonus for pre-ordering the game, and wow, a 63. My other dude was a 74 by the time I brought him up to 17. But you know, look at that potential. So he's probably going to be a stud, but yeah, I don't know yet. Now, this kid, I doubt will even make it on my team by the time I get going. This one I know won't. Now this one could. He very well could, but he's 17 already. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't like the fact that I have 4 attacking players and I don't have any defenders. So, you know, we have to work on that. But I'm going to come back with episode 1, and I'm going to probably do a... No, I won't play a game or show you a game until I get past preseason. Preseason doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I win or lose, so I don't really need to show that games. I'm going to try to have about 6 episodes a season. 5, of course, are going to be my random games. I might have like a cup final if I make it, or a quarterfinal if I make it, or stuff like that, you know, in addition. But I am going to have a end of season review. And I'm going to have a transfer special. So that's probably going to be 8 or 9 episodes. So I'm going to have more than what I thought. But anyhow, guys, I just wanted to redo this. So I am sorry about that. But it had to be done. So anyhow, thanks for watching, guys. And please come back for episode 1 when we get into this. Because it is actually going to be a really fun challenge. It's going to be a hard challenge with the money and everything else. But it's going to be interesting. And it's unique. I do things different. I'm trying to do things different than most people. So pass the word on to your friends. You know, if you like it, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. So anyhow, guys, thanks for watching, and talk to you later.